Welcome, everybody. We'll give everyone about 15 more seconds to call in. We've got a jam-packed agenda, so we don't want to wait too long. A couple more seconds. All right, while we're waiting for the last few folks to come in, Allison just put a copy of the agenda in the chat, so you can take a look at what our jam-pack agenda looks like. I am Jackie Anderson, the Executive Director at Feeding Wisconsin. And Matt, I'll toss it over to you.
Nice to see everyone again. I'm Matt Steenstra. I'm Director of Advocacy and Community Engagement with Feeding America East in Wisconsin. Um, do we want to have some other folks from our leadership team do a quick introduction?
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do Allison, Caitlin, and Stacy.
Hey everyone, so great to see you back for the September Healthy School Meals for All Coalition call. My name's Allison. I'm Farm to School Director at REAP Food Group, which is a nonprofit based in Madison, Wisconsin. Toss it over to Caitlin.
Hi, everybody. I'm Caitlin Harrison. I am the Director of Food and Nutrition at the Elmbrook Schools in Southeast Wisconsin, and I am also the President-elect for the School Nutrition Association of Wisconsin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stacy Nelson. I am the current School Nutrition Association of Wisconsin's president, and I am also the Director of Food and Nutrition Services at the Menominee Area School District.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Just as a reminder, this coalition is the Healthy School Meals for All Coalition. That is a variety of different folks from different areas, some from schools, some from food banks, some from food pantries, some farmers. We've got lots of different folks all coming together to really look at how we can ensure that all kids in Wisconsin are fed healthy, whole food in a variety of different ways. So the coalition has been going strong for, gosh, Allison, how many, a year, 2 years?
2021 was when the coalition started, but we adopted the three organization leadership model about 2 years ago.
Awesome. All right. So thank you, Allison, for that little bit. So we're excited to have lots of interesting speakers today, one of which is Representative Francesca Hong, who has been a staunch advocate for healthy school meals for all for a really long time. And so part of the coalition work is to really focus in on advocacy and how we can support policies that impact our schools in the best way possible. So what we're going to do is, Rep Hong, if you are on, we're going to kick it over to you, first of all, to provide any legislative updates.
Thanks so much, Jackie, and hi, everyone. I am really excited to be back on a coalition call. Hope folks had as good of a summer as they could have had. It's actually a very exciting day here in the Capitol, and I don't get to say that often. But this morning, Allison joined us here as we uplifted and reintroduced the Healthy School Meals for All legislation that we had introduced earlier last fall. We decided with back to school and us coming out with two other public school bills today that it would be a great time for folks to remember that we are still fighting really hard for a universal school meals program here in Wisconsin. And so I want to thank you, Allison, for coming out to the Capitol. She gave an amazing speech. I love the metaphor around what is front of house and back of house. I'm definitely going to take some of those remarks for my next speech about healthy school meals for all. But it's really encouraging, and I want folks here to know that the advocacy that has been happening from this coalition for the last 4 years has united our caucus. We, even as Democrats, don't always see eye to eye especially around how policy should be implemented when we get into the nitty-gritty and the weeds. And the Healthy School Meals for All legislation that we have crafted and advocated for over the years, this is the thing that every single Dem in this caucus is on, and we're going to continue to fight to make sure that it can become law when we've got Democrats here in the majority. We're hoping, this is a nonpartisan call, by the way, but with new leadership in the legislature, I am very hopeful that we'll be able to see this across the finish line. Many of you all know that, especially right now with the current regime, a lot of the programs that we have relied on are now under threat. And it's more imperative that we continue to grow this coalition to ensure that folks can rally around something that impacts every single community here in our state. So encouraged again that we have such broad consensus amongst our colleagues. I even do think there are some folks across the aisle who would support this. As we come into this school year, I will be sure to let folks know when we've got when we have more opportunities to uplift the Healthy School Meals for All legislation. I think we are probably looking at a couple more packages around public schools coming out, and I'm going to advocate and try to make sure that we uplift our bill every single time that we've got a school bill coming out as well. Organizing is what we need to grow, especially right now, and I think having more resources around why this bill is so important, which this coalition has built up, encouraging folks in their community, no matter how small the group, to continue to talk about all of the benefits of our legislation. And then let's make sure that going into and having an opportunity for new leadership in the legislature next year, this is something that you hold every single elected official who might be running for re-election or new candidates running for open seats, that the Healthy School Meals for All legislation, I would make a direct ask whether they support it or not. And so excited to continue to talk about organizing in the coming months. And again, congrats on all the work that you have done thus far. It was great to see Healthy School Meals for All be top of the agenda again as one of the first bills that we've talked about after the budget process. I'm happy to take additional questions if folks have it, but really, I'm just very grateful for everyone and the work that you've done and the work that we're going to continue to do.
Thank you so much, Rep Hong. If you have questions, you could certainly drop them into the chat. We were just talking, Rep Hong, before you came on. Our next call will be focused primarily on advocacy and how we can really start getting everyone together and excited about moving the needle on this. So we will definitely come back to you to have your insight and expertise. Thank you so much for being here. So I think we're going to now go to some federal changes, because you all know that there is a lot happening on the federal level as well that will impact us on the state level. So we're going to turn it over to Caitlin and/or Stacy to give a brief overview on how the One Big Beautiful Bill Act will impact our schools here in Wisconsin.
Hi, everyone. So as far as right now, we really don't have any new information to share about the One Big Beautiful Bill. And I feel like this school year, we aren't seeing any direct changes as far as in my district and the amount of families that are certifying through their benefits and direct certification. But with the changes to the way that the SNAP programs and food share is offered and supplied to the families, that would likely trickle down to us as we continue doing direct certifications through the state. Caitlin, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing is we don't know a lot right now. The biggest concern is those families who will no longer qualify for SNAP benefits, will no longer be directly certified, in our programs. And so that will obviously, those families won't be directly certified, right? Like that's problem number one. But then they would need to complete a free and reduced meal application. So that, creates more barriers for the families. And then additionally, an increased burden on our office staff for those of us who work in that realm. Weeding through those free and reduced lunch applications. And that does take a lot of time. Investment, so we don't know what the future holds yet, unfortunately. So like Stacy said, it's more to come. That's kind of what we know right now. And maybe Matt and Jackie can shed some light on what those SNAP changes are to come. But for us in school nutrition, that's kind of where we are right now, is we know that there will be an effect. We just don't know how large at this time.
And to follow up on what Caitlin's saying, in knowing that the changes coming for, to the impact on the school meals program are going to be influenced by food share or SNAP participation and the rules surrounding that. We don't have final guidance and rules yet on that. We're working very closely with the state of Wisconsin to make sure that when the federal government actually lays out all the details, we're going to take them, we're going to work with the state of Wisconsin, and we're going to make sure that information gets out to everyone so that people know how the steps that they need to take in order to maintain eligibility for the program. More to come on that. And as soon as we get that information, we will share. The one piece of information that we do have right now that we know is important is to make sure that if you or if you're in contact with any families that participate in food share, keep those addresses updated in My Access. To keep the addresses updated, to make sure that the right email address, the right home address, because letters will be coming. It's all in there so that when changes come and the state of Wisconsin wants to start communicating what changes are happening, everyone can get the right information right away.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. So to continue moving along through the agenda, because we do have a couple of speakers we want to make sure have ample time to share. Allison, if you're cool, can we jump to our speakers before we get to some of the website stuff? Okay. So with that, I'm wondering, Matt, would you be interested in introducing Abby? And then we'll have Lillian pop up after Abby's done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do believe I saw Abby on the call before. Um,
I'm here.
So, oh, great. Okay. So I'm Abby. I'll just do a quick, brief introduction, and then I'll let you introduce yourself too and get into your presentation. But just briefly, unless you're living under a rock, you probably saw that this year New York became the 9th state added to the still growing list of states making the legislative commitment to make sure that all kids get school meals without having to worry about being charged. But as you can imagine, this did not happen in a vacuum or by accident. There have been years and years of hard work, both behind the scenes and out in front, to push this campaign forward to be able to get to this spot. And we're honored to be able to have one of the co-chairs of the statewide campaign, Abby Watts, who is the Director of School Food Advocacy with Community Food Advocates, on the call to be able to talk to us a little bit more about the work that they did, some of the successes they saw, the challenges, and how they worked through them. Abby, take it away. And honestly, Allison, if Abby is not a presenter able to share, if there's a way to be able to do that.
I
But
think I
Abby,
just
oh,
did.
you already got it. You
Did
got
I
it.
do
Okay,
it?
awesome. Yes, you did. Thank you. Awesome.
Yay. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for welcoming me in this space. It's very exciting to be doing some of these conversations where we get to talk about how far we've come, and this year being the actual first year of Universal. So, but I also feel for all of those states who are still in the thick of it with their campaigns and working towards this achievement. So as Matt mentioned, Community Food Advocates, the organization I am with, co-led the Healthy School Meals for All campaign with Hunger Solutions New York, which is a statewide organization. And how we kind of came to co-lead together, CFA, Community Food Advocates for short, we led the campaign in New York City we got free school meals in 2017. That was also a 4-year campaign. So there've been many, many years, both city and state work for Community Food Advocates, and then partnering with Hunger Solutions, who's a statewide anti-hunger advocacy organization doing work in many different areas of food access. So it was just kind of a beautiful partnership, and we grew the coalition very quickly. As I'm sure is the case with you all, there is a lot of support and interest from a breadth of organizations and all different. So I'll kind of skim over some of these because I think this is probably familiar to all of you in terms of like coalitions forming, and but we have more than 350 organizations, and I should speak in the present because we still exist as a coalition, and as we're looking towards implementation of this policy and what we can build on moving forward, we are still a coalition strong, 350 organizations. That includes schools, districts, what am I trying to say? Membership organizations, PTA, the statewide organizations, and then like some smaller and more school-based ones. But really ran the gamut in terms of partners involved, and that's not to say that 350 people were on our coalition calls, but showed up in support. And I'll talk a bit about like the actions that folks were involved with. So just to give a little story timeline. This is also probably familiar to all of you, coming off the heels of the pandemic era waivers. That's kind of what kicked off our coalition on the statewide campaign. We'd, of course, had this kind of in the back of our minds for many years as an organization, and I think other organizations too. And this, there was like an opportune moment that we seized, and had a great success actually in the first year of the campaign. The state budget established an expansion through the community eligibility provision. So we actually, through that, just allowing the state to create the subsidy that any school that participated in CEP, that was eligible for CEP, would be subsidized at the free rate. And that resulted in almost 400,000 students gaining access. And I should also, just for context, like in New York City, we have around 1 million students just in the city. So the statewide, ultimately 2.7 million students have access. And this is for schools operating the school breakfast and lunch programs. So again, 9th state so far, and 2.7 million students have access now. I'm happy to take questions like as we go, so feel free to interrupt me or put something in the chat. Matt, you said you keep an eye there. If you can always interrupt. I also want to be cognizant of time, so that was kind of just like the overview background story of how the years that we've spent on this campaign. And I should also mention this past year where we actually got universal school meals in the budget. Governor Hochul put it in her executive budget in January, which was the first year she'd done that, and that really kind of set the stage for the rest of the legislative session and it getting fully through the budget. So we partly attribute that to she had strong messaging around like an affordability campaign. So being able to kind of pivot our messaging and figure out, how we can pitch healthy school meals for all within that context, I think was really helpful in terms of getting it in that executive budget this year. But over like that timeline you saw, like lots of activities were happening over that time, including regional press events. There were regions of the state that I'll show you a map in a second of areas of the state that were like largely left out of the expansion. So when we had that expansion of subsidizing CEP, I feel like I'm in an environment here where I can use CEP acronym and okay. So there were parts of the state where there's a high cost of living, and there were schools that weren't eligible for CEP. So those kids were being largely left behind in areas where the need is really there. So also meetings with legislators, building those relationships over time. Representative Hong mentioned, support across, like this really speaks to so many people, and we had large bipartisan support. We had Republican senators coming and speaking about their personal experiences with school meals as a child. So we really bolstered up support from many different people. We got earned media. There was a concerted communications effort, and probably helpful for your context. We did have funding from the New York Health Foundation, and a few other foundations with smaller grants. And part of what the New York Health Foundation did was support us through a communications firm. So in that first year of the campaign, we actually had a communications firm that really helped us get some of that running. Unfortunately, we lost that support as the campaign went on, but we were able to kind of stay in there, and that gave us some footing to get things in future years. But when you don't have a whole communications campaign, social media is always something to draw on. We did a lot around just like days that we would have a social media blast, getting our coalition to like just get it out there with our hashtag and doing personal signs, things like that. We had a lot of student engagement, which came from a lot of different groups that are part of our coalition, including Community Food Advocates that has a Youth Food Advocates cohort, and are really, informed and passionate about these issues already. So it was really genuine engagement, and we had speakers that were really incredible, and young people leading postcard campaigns, which we took this idea that actually came from a young person leading in one year, and then the next year we helped coordinate some statewide efforts around that. Oh, I'm going backwards now. I'm totally not paying attention to time. Matt, how am I doing?
You're doing fine. You're great.
Okay. Any questions or like comments? Anything that would be helpful to speak more on of what I've covered so far?
Abby, I'll ask a question. Curious your recommendations, like if you had limited budget on promo materials right now, what would be your one thing you'd recommend from like the work that you've done? It sounds like you've done the postcards and I see the signs. What do you feel is most impactful?
So by promo materials, do you mean like what we actually put out into the ether through social media or like public, or?
I think any of that, or maybe just like what would be, the best way to get the word out, most bang for the buck from what you all did.
I think it really depends on what the goal is, like so for instance, I'm thinking of the signs that people held up, like that. I think it was great to get the messaging out and like seeing people hold these signs in support, and having legislators, holding their signs of support and putting that on their social media. But that has the double impact of the engagement and relationship building that has when people are actually engaging in that activity. So it's partly, I think it really depends on like what the goal is, whether it's like, because you could do like a Facebook ad. I think we even did that at one point, and like they can geo target audiences and things like that. So, and I know but it's really hard to say what's most effective when you don't always get like, you can look at like impressions and stuff, but you're like, okay, what's actually moving the needle here? So it's hard for me to answer that with like a straightforward one, but I would say like if you're looking at the like, I think we did a lot of like, okay, well, we want to do this activity, but like, what are we trying to get out of it? Like, who are we trying to reach? What's the point of doing it? What's the purpose of it? So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but
No, that is. I appreciate it. Thank you.
and this might also, what I'm pivoting into now might actually be helpful too in terms of that, because what we were also responding to throughout the campaign, I'd mentioned this map where we were able to kind of look at the gaps of where that CEP subsidy wasn't reaching in parts of the state. So we were able to actually map, so the red here is schools that were not able to offer free for all in that first year of the expansion with this partial state funding. So like, of course, we were celebrating this, like, yay, there's this huge expansion, way more kids have access to free school meals. But it's not reaching it, it's not doing what it's actually meant to do, which is like create equity for access. So being able to visualize this was like really helpful, especially I think for legislators and people working in schools and people advocating within their specific regions. And similarly, so this on the left is like a district fact sheet. So we were able to, I love a mail merge. We were take like our spreadsheet of data and actually provide to each a representative like who's actually being left out in your district, how many schools and students. And we found those to be super powerful. So this might partially answer your question, Allison, if depending on where you are in the campaign, something like this that's really responding to the local question and like garnering support from certain individuals. This kind of thing was super helpful.
Hey,
And then
Abby,
the
I
other,
want, oh, sorry, Abby, I just wanted to see a question that, or pop up a question that Lily had, and I was actually thinking the same thing. This map is amazing. Real quick, could you talk about how you collected the data?
yeah. So I say Hunger Solutions has a long-standing relationship with the state education department. So they were able, like, they would actually send us the data files of like, these are the schools that have CEP, these are the ones that don't, and it had like a number of other data. I don't believe it had, we actually did some data matching ourselves. So like there'd be like a unique school code and we'd have to like match it with another publicly available data set on schools and find the addresses. So we did a lot of this like back end work ourselves to be able to pull the, but if you're able to get the data on schools and like either it comes with addresses or you have a way to get those addresses, you could do something like this. Was just Google Maps. So yeah, I know that like there's more sophisticated mapping, but honestly, because it was Google Maps, I think it got more like people were like, oh, like people are familiar enough to be able to go and like click around and visualize it there. Is that helpful at all with the data question? And then another piece of, I think, our success was just coordinating with other campaigns. There's basically a farm to school coalition in the state too. And we work closely with them on, aligning messaging and kind of supporting each other's, like, we had a very consistent direct message and we were clear about what our campaign commitment was. We weren't going in with compromises. But we would draw from and support other initiatives and campaigns around school meals. I'm sure I could probably talk for hours about this, but I know there's limited time. So any other questions or comments?
Could you talk a little about maybe one or two times that you had to pivot or problems that you faced in your campaign and how did you get around them?
Yeah.
I know it's like
yeah.
trying to pick a blade of grass out of a field, but
yeah, no. I'm just trying to think of like what's most useful to share. Oh gosh, because I think one thing that's coming to mind is like there was an entity. I don't even need to name. There was another group interested in advocating for healthy school meals for all who acted like a partner for a while, but like wasn't fully ingrained, and then they went a little rogue. So we were kind of like uh fielding like they went on the like in an aggressive way that wasn't necessarily reflective of how we function as a campaign and wanted to put forth. But I feel like that's a little like out of left field kind of thing. I hope that you never encounter that. Um, I guess I'm thinking more of like, for example, when there were points. I mean, the expansion that happened in that first year of the campaign, the CEP subsidy, um, I mean, it's obviously it wasn't the full thing, right? So it wasn't what we actually wanted, and we of course we were in conversation with what was happening in the legislative session and hearing that this could be coming down the pike, and we were asked, like, is it, how about this? And like we were consistent that like no, we're not looking for a compromise here. Um, Not to say that we didn't want that progress, and we knew it would happen anyway. So like, it was, but there was a challenge there in terms of like figuring out what we wanted as a coalition and what we were going to stick to. We didn't want to just be like, oh yeah, we'll take any compromise, because that might show down the line that like, yeah, well, and in further year in the following year, a compromise again came up and like really didn't make any sense administratively, and like we were able to kind of navigate some of that by being experts in school food policy and being able to kind of field those. I feel like I should have a better answer for there. I'm sure there were many challenges along the way, but that's one that comes to mind.
I think that's excellent. I think like yeah, it's showing the legislative problems that pop up, the tough parts about like organizing like a big campaign that a lot of people want to glob onto. Yeah, no, that's excellent. Anyone else have any other questions for Abby?
Yeah, I do have a question. I feel like with any one of these campaigns, trying to get this into policy is a challenge. And I know you said that you had significant bipartisan support. Were there specific conversations with folks that you could describe as on the other side of the aisle, or who, initially opposed investing in something like this? Were there specific conversations or data sets or information that you shared with them to really get behind you and support this?
So I would point again to those district specific sheets. And we we did also have a lot of like fact sheets on why universal school, like why school meals are so important and why universal school meals. And I think those were compelling to a degree, but I think like for the legislators themselves, being able to tie this to their constituents and the impact there was really critical. And that's where I saw the like biggest shift in terms of attention getting.
I think that's great. Abby, uh, would you be okay putting a email in the chat if anyone has any
Oh
questions
yeah,
afterwards? We'll reach out to you.
absolutely. Yep.
Awesome.
Thanks so much
Um,
for having me.
Thank you so much, Abby. Congratulations on all of your work. I hope you know that we're all cheering you on from afar and also learning lessons to apply to our work here.
Thanks.
All right. Next, I'm gonna kick it back over to Jackie.
Great. Thank you again, Abby, for the time and for your insight and knowledge. It's certainly helpful here. So we're going to go from New York to Tennessee, where we're going to hear from another state advocate. So Lily Markham is the child anti-hunger advocate at Tennessee Justice Center. So if you've not heard of any of the work that's happening at the Tennessee Justice Center, They are knocking it out of the park on lots of really great policies. So she is willing to hop on and share a little bit about the work that they're doing, as well as similar to what Abby shared, how their coalition is helping to support and move some of these bills forward and getting them across the finish line. So I will also confess, I just heard about this specific amazing work like last week, and I reached out to Lily and I was like, hey, would you be interested in being on a coalition call? And she's like, absolutely. So for that, thank you so much, Lily, for really last minute being willing to hop on. So with that, Lily, I'll turn it over to you. I will also put the bill that you're working on in the chat so folks can actually see what specifically y'all are working on around expanding school breakfast and putting some onus on the state when it comes to funding school lunches.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like I am learning so much by being here, so I'm so happy to be here. So I can start off just describing the bill. We are working on it's in our Tennessee General Assembly, House Bill 1153, Senate Bill 740. It is focusing on eliminating the reduced price category, so expanding the free category. To give context to our campaign, I believe this was before my time, but in 2021, 2022, we were going for the full free school meals for all, whole shebang. And we were just running into the fiscal note issue. I think something that has stayed the same is just the administration is really influencing a lot, as we all know. And it just was not going to be something that was feasible. We did have both our Senate and House sponsors were Republicans. That's something of note of Tennessee. It is a Republican supermajority. So if you want to really get anything done with a fiscal note, it's going to have an R by their name. And they, especially our House sponsor, was a great advocate. But something else that was going on alongside this time was our governor was trying to push for school vouchers, and it was causing a lot of division in the Republican Party in Tennessee. And our sponsor, like the day before the bill was heard in its first committee, went to leadership and said, I'm going to vote against vouchers. And all of his bills that session got knocked down. So that's kind of context to where we came from and where we are now working on reduced price. We decided to just take it as that step towards school meals for all. That just seems to be an easier sell and has honestly been pretty effective this session. Tennessee General Assembly works in 2-year cycles. So we have our first session was started in January 2025, went through early May, and then we'll pick back up again in January 2026. And then this, starting in January, that's going to be our last chance to get it over the finish line for this cycle, or we have to start all over again. But a little bit of the process of finding sponsors. Again, I feel like I'm giving a lot of nitty-gritty information that is probably not the most applicable to other states, but it was just such a unique session this time around. Leadership, very last minute, I think session they had already gavelled in, said that they were limiting the number of bills House representatives were allowed to carry. So that threw everyone into a tizzy 2 weeks before the bill filing deadline. On top of that, we had a special session right after the first week of session about school vouchers, and that threw everyone crazy. And on top of that, we had a federal trial for a former speaker, the directly previous Speaker of the House, having to do something with money laundering where half of the members were subpoenaed. So all that to say, this year has been crazy for politics in Tennessee. But going back to school meals, it really just was kind of a mad dash to try to find sponsors. I don't think I slept for 2 weeks. It was absolutely insane. But it was just something I think, Jackie, you said in your email was just that we can commiserate by being in a very conservative state. And I was very, I don't know if hesitant's the right word. I don't know the right word that I'm looking for, but apprehensive about what the success was going to be, knowing that we needed conservative sponsorship. But honestly, I think that was the biggest learning moment for me, was just having open conversations. We have the data to back all of this up. Something else that was really vital, I think, was collecting constituent statements. So if I was going into a meeting with someone, I mean, I have pages of statements from across Tennessee, but I would specifically highlight people in their district, and that was very effective. And I would make sure to bring it up in that conversation. But something else that I feel like I very quickly learned was it's very difficult to say you don't care about hungry kids. And I mean, I can't even count how many people I spoke to about this. And there are definitely the meetings where you get brushed off, but there's only one person who I can think of, one representative who was just giving me such a hard time about this. And now she's actually a co-sponsor on our legislation. So I don't know how helpful all of that is, but that just gives a little bit of context into where we are now. I'll go a little bit into our coalition partners. So I'm the lead of our coalition in the Tennessee Justice Center. And our closest partners, I would say, are Second Harvest Food Bank of Northeast Tennessee, American Heart, Education Trust, and Save the Children Action Network, along with other education organizations like the School Nutrition Association, superintendents, the teaching union, all of these different people. But our closest nonprofit partners are definitely those 4 or 5 that I just mentioned, and have been, I think, absolutely vital in covering our state. We have a very long, skinny state. So our Northeast Food Bank partner, just absolutely phenomenal. She made it her mission to get everyone in the Northeast delegation co-sponsoring our piece of legislation. And actually our Senate sponsor is her senator. So she has just been absolutely invaluable, honestly. And then American Heart, our liaison with American Heart was a previous legislative aide and has just ample knowledge of how our General Assembly works and who the key players are, and all of that. But I'm sure you all know all of that. You want people across your state who are helping you guide this piece of legislation to the finish line. So I feel like I just rambled and talked for like 10 minutes. So please ask a question. I'm sure that I said something confusing. So any clarification you need, please just ask away.
So I just want to say too, like, we recognize even though we're not a supermajority, we are pretty darn close here in Wisconsin. So I can definitely empathize with you in that area. I'll just ask one specific question. I'm curious if you could give one strategy on how you convinced that one Republican who was like, not in favor, then what did you do to kind of swing her over to the other side? Is there anything that was like a best practice we could model after?
I this is I think a great example of our coalition working so seamlessly together. I think we all have very different personalities and way we approach things, but have a common goal, and it can work really serendipitously. And I think this is a perfect moment of I'm probably the more annoying one. I'm the one that's on the Hill almost every day in somebody's office, showing my face. And showing the data, asking them to co-sponsor, blah, 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 blah. Who co-sponsored, she's actually also in the Northeast delegation. So when our Second Harvest Food Bank partner came up for a day on the Hill, she made sure that she would meet with her, and I went with her. And she just has a magic with people, honestly. Her name's Cecile, and we call it Cecile Magic. And I I would like to think maybe I wore her down a little bit, like, you know, when you're twisting the pasta jar and then the next person pops the lid off. I would like to think I loosened the lid a tiny bit. But honestly, I think it was just, again, me being annoying, and then also Cecile coming in and closing the deal of saying how this would be so great for our kids. And, oh, you know, so and so in Northeast Tennessee, and oh, blah, 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 blah. And what do you like about this? And just making it so personal. I think it was just a really good balance of she already had the facts. We had already had conversations about the philosophical implications of I think the first conversation I had with her, what she said to me was, it's not my fault that they're hungry. Um, and to go from that to her being a co-sponsor and public, and I actually just got an email today that she was publicly speaking at an event about this, proudly saying that she's co-sponsoring on that, is pretty insane.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
So I think it's just the persistence, but also being willing to bring in someone else to close the deal.
That's amazing. And so inspirational, to be honest, because you know, we've got some hard ones too here in Wisconsin too. So again, the importance of educating and having that data and that story collection is really important in all of this. So Lily, thank you so much. Abby, thank you guys so much. I feel like this is the first of many conversations where we'd love to bring you guys back in and kind of continue to talk about your journey and how we can apply it here in Wisconsin. Lily, if you two wouldn't mind putting your email in the chat, because I know there's people who are going to have questions. And thank you again, both of you. I'm going to turn it over to Allison and Caitlin, I think, for the next couple of pieces.
Excellent. And I think, Caitlin, maybe we can pivot to you and your experience from Wednesday.
Sure. Thank you both for that. That was like a lot of wonderful information, and kind of gives me a little bit more excitement to keep going because as everyone on this call knows, and especially the two of you, it's sometimes you feel like you're beating your head against the wall, honestly. Okay. So anyway, just wanted to update everyone on something that I had the opportunity to do on Tuesday. So in partnership with the organization that supports the School Nutrition Association of Wisconsin, and then our legislative partners from Hovind Consulting, kind of connected the dots there. And so one of their other organizations that they work with is called Wisconsin Health News. And so an interesting group of folks from obviously the medical field and lots of different organizations involved in that. So they invited me to speak on a panel entitled "What Could MAHA Mean for Wisconsin?" So right off the bat, super interesting title. So really didn't know what I was getting into, but they did give me some questions ahead of time to kind of prepare and level set. So really what I had the opportunity to do is talk about healthy school meals for all and how that would impact the health of students here in Wisconsin. So along with me on the panel was a doctor from the Academy of Pediatrics in the state, Representative Karen Hurd, Senator Rachel Cabral Guerrera. I'm going to butcher her name, but she's from the Appleton area. And then Representative Hurd is from Withee, Wisconsin. And then there was a lady from, she's a CEO of a health system in St. Croix County. So an interesting cross sector of people, and definitely an interesting conversation. So the conversation started about how we can make the state healthier again, and what we kind of thought about some of these initiatives that are coming down from the federal administration. So what I did is I really took the opportunity to talk about how important it was to know that school meals are not like they were 30 or 40 years ago, and make sure that those folks in that room and then everybody that they talked to really knew that we are serving tons of high quality, fresh ingredients. And it's not just chicken nuggets and pizza that was served 30, 40 years ago when they were coming through the lunch line. I made a comment about the square pizza, and everybody in the room was like, I love that. That's so good. So anyway, and I got a lot of like reactions from the audience when I was talking about the quality of school lunch. I saw a lot of head nods, which I thought was encouraging. It was good to kind of see that most folks understood that. So that was one of my goals. Was sitting on the panel is making sure that we're hopefully changing that conversation about what school lunch actually looks like. And then we also had additional conversations about healthy school meals for all and the coalition's work and what we can do to support that. So it was a really good conversation. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for continuing conversations there. In fact, I intend on reaching out to Representative Hurd and Senator RCG, with Jackie's suggestion, and just to continue that conversation. Obviously, we may not see perfectly eye to eye on a lot of those things, but I feel like it's this coalition's mission to have those difficult conversations this year. And to hopefully win some of them over, like Lily, you did in Tennessee. So it was a really interesting opportunity. I felt like it went very well. Nathan Butzloff was there, so he can tell you if I totally totally bombed, but no, I think it went well. And I felt like it was a positive message shared overall.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions for Caitlin? No, you can just to do a call out in the notes. There is a link to WisGuy, so you can see that meeting, that panel that Caitlin was a part of. I'll jump in real quick and just being conscious of time. Rep Hong already mentioned I had the pleasure of chatting at the Capitol this morning, and I just also pulled in from WisGuy the speeches that went on this morning, so definitely check those out. But one thing I really want to highlight is our Healthy School Meals for All website has undergone some updates. We're still in the process of getting it fully updated. There's a few things that may be a little bit outdated, but we're getting to a good spot. And just want to give a shout out for y'all to take a peek at it. Let us know if there's anything that's missing that you want to see. Some of the things that we've heard over the last year is wanting to have easy access to data. And so we're going to make sure we've got that really clean and easy to access. Our Take Action Toolkit, which if you've been on past coalition calls, you've heard us chat about. It's a Google Drive that has template letters to reach out to your representatives, how to do press releases, social media graphics. That is now directly linked in our website. So you can either go to our website and find it, or you can go back to the different notes from the coalition calls. And just trying to make it a lot easier for folks to subscribe to our listserv, to follow us on Instagram, to join a coalition call, or to publicly join the coalition and show support for this movement. So I'll make sure we drop it in the chat, drop the website link in the chat, but it's also in the notes. So please take a peek at it. And if there's anything that you see that you need, please reach out to healthyschoolmealswi@gmail.com and we will get that for you. Want to leave, we've got about 6 minutes left, and Jackie, Matt, certainly happy to turn things back over to you. Is there anything we want to chat about, or do we want to open it up for some questions?
I don't know if you want to go first, Jackie, or we can. So as far as the action items that we have, I'll talk about the action items real quick, and then we'll open up for questions. So obviously, coming out of this call, I think some of the things are clear is that there's just a lot of legislative action happening across the country right now. And hopefully we're learning a little bit more about like what can help make us successful. We saw what Representative Hong, Allison, and others did in Madison, and then we've seen what's happening in New York and Tennessee. One of the biggest action items we have is that we're bringing together folks that will be willing to meet with elected officials. We can help give people all the tools to make sure that they can make it happen, or we can help set up the meetings ourselves, or see if you want to come along with a meeting with us. So that's one of the top actions that we have prioritized right now, is having these conversations with elected officials, regardless of party, to make sure that we can do like what Tennessee has done, to see what New York has done over the course of a number of years, and move people along to make sure that they understand why it's important that they're on our side. So please either put in the chat or reach out to us if you'd be willing to come along with us. Next, Jackie, please fill in if I'm missing anything. The other thing I was going to see is like questions or updates from the rest of the coalition. Anything that they want to share, or any questions that people have.
Quiet group.
Anita, you don't have anything?
I know. I actually moved so I could see Anita's face, because I'm like, Anita always has a question. And
Yes,
Selena, you too.
I was trying to be quiet today. But my question was, I think her name was is it Lily? She
Mhm, from
talked
Tennessee.
about, right, she talked about she was on a panel, and she talked about the reaction from the audience when she talked about the lunches and the breakfast, and back there in our days when we had lunches. So I really wanted to know more about that reaction that she got, because back there in my days, as you all know on the call, I enjoyed those breakfast and lunch that they had in school. You know, I'm learning now about process and all that. But my main thing is, and I want all kids to have access to food. And I do understand now that not all food is food. We're looking for food that's nutritious for the brain, so the kids can thrive. So could she answer that question of what the reaction she got from the audience when she was talking about this? Sorry.
Yeah, so I think it was actually Caitlin, not Lily.
Oh,
So
okay.
Caitlin left.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll help you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I can answer that. I think for me, it was important to share that while we do offer some of those processed foods, it's certainly not what meets the eye, right? So all of those items include whole grains and lean proteins. And it's a balance, right? It's a balance of what students are going to consume and what they're used to seeing, but also side by side offering that with whole, fresh ingredients. And so that's what the sentiment that I shared with that group is that while we do still offer some of those items, they are not what you get at a restaurant or the grocery store. They're specifically made with whole grains, lean proteins, like I said, to meet school regulations because they have to, right? And I know you know all that, but also just sharing with them the things that schools offer as far as fresh produce, bringing in locally sourced items, increasing scratch cooking. So I think what I saw from the audience perspective was them understanding that that is actually how school lunch is, and it's shifting more in that direction of, these things are becoming more whole food, more scratch cooking, and those things, there's momentum there, and that's going to continue to pick up. So that's I guess what I saw from the audience perspective. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that answered my question, because I'm gonna gotta know we're short on time, because I'm going back to the fact that the Black Panthers are the one that started the breakfast and lunch in the schools. And when I went back and did the research on that, what they did is they did healthy, appealing, farm-based and all that, and it worked. So I got confused why, if something worked, why did they discontinue giving this to the kids? Also, the kids thrived in school, and they elevated in school. They were learning.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I understand that the USDA guidelines, with all of these guidelines, how do you go to get that changed? And that's why I'm getting confused at. How do you go back to change the policies and all that with the USDA guidelines?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you got to talk to your federal representatives, right? Your reps that make those rules, and yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a big push for that, and I think a lot of that is actually happening right now. I think the challenge is the challenge and benefit to the state of Wisconsin is there's so many different kinds of school districts across the state. You've got your little tiny ones who do make literally everything from scratch. And then you've got large districts, like I know you're super familiar with MPS, with Madison Metro, Green Bay Public. I mean, there's so many that also have like the far opposite side of that spectrum. And so you got to find something that can be applicable across all of those avenues, which is the biggest challenge.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anita, for your awesome question and historical reminder of how this all started. So thank you for bringing that up again. So we are at 2:31. So thanks for sticking with us a few extra minutes. Allison, anything else we need to talk about before we close out?
I think we're all good, but if anyone has any questions that pop up after this, please feel free to reach out to us. Take a look at our website. In that footer, you're going to find both the contact form and our email. So thanks everyone for hopping on.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.